Colorado allows citizens and advocacy groups to bypass the state legislature and put initiatives on the ballot, but that can also put state budget writers in a bind. For example, a recent ballot initiative required the state to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on law enforcement, forcing lawmakers to make cuts elsewhere. Our Marshall Zellinger explains how a bill at the Capitol is now trying to give voters more information next time, even if it's not accurate.
Voters approved funding for police training and bonuses in 2024. Proposition 130 meant lawmakers needed to spend $350 million on law enforcement. Democratic State Representative Cecilia Espinoza believes voters did not realize that $350 million for law enforcement also meant cuts in other parts of the budget.
But what if the majority of the people did know that?
Well, I think the way to find out is to give them the information, right?
She's sponsoring a bill that would add language to ballot issues like Proposition 130. If a ballot issue required new state spending without providing new funding, voters would be shown the top 3 areas of the state budget that would be cut and approximately how much.
The point is to give the citizens knowledge that there will be cuts if it's asking for an additional state expenditure.
I think there's a place for arguments back and forth. That's the Blue Book.
Michael Fields' conservative advocacy group Advance Colorado put Proposition 130 on the ballot, forcing lawmakers to direct more spending to law enforcement while they were also supposed to cut $1 billion from the state budget. The budget conundrum was kind of spelled out in the 2024 Blue Book. One of the arguments against Prop 130, local communities may anticipate levels of funding that the legislature cannot provide due to limited resources.
The legislature wants to come in, meddle with these citizens' initiatives because they don't like the outcome.
Here's the thing. Budget decisions are in control of the 6 lawmakers who sit on the Joint Budget Committee. So printing on the ballot what might get cut won't be fully accurate.
So really what it comes down to is it ends up being the top 3 things in the budget, which is a lot of times a lie.
The top 3 areas of the state budget are Medicaid, K-12, and higher ed.
As this budget year has demonstrated, we cannot balance a budget without addressing those 3 largest expenditures.
But despite calls to shrink the budget, state spending on those top 3 areas was not cut this year. Medicaid spending, which the state spends the most on, went up this year compared to last, as did K-12 education and higher education. Barely.
Proposition 130 did not bind lawmakers to fund $350 million for law enforcement to any set time period. So, lawmakers passed a bill last year to creatively fund that amount over time, over the next decade, without cuts to Medicaid, K-12, and higher ed. So, if this bill were a law that was already in place in 2024, saying $350 million would be at the expense of those 3 budget areas would not be accurate for what really happened, Jenny.
I would imagine that if something's going to cost money, where do we pull it from? That if you don't know, there could be a risk there of getting pretty political, right? If you're trying to warn voters about a decision they might make.
Sure, and perhaps that's the thinking of this, that if voters had in front of them, wait a minute, you're going to cut from these 3 areas, whether or not that's fully accurate. Wait, you're going to cut from these 3 areas. I don't want to approve that now. That's the thinking of Michael Fields, like it's another hurdle that the lawmakers are trying to put on the ballot.
I see. Okay. Well, and also if this goes on the ballot, we'll talk about how much longer a ballot's going to get. We're going to have novels.
No kidding. And look, I specialize in this, and the longer it gets, the more emails we're going to get. Like, what is this saying?
Interesting. Okay. Interesting. Marshall, thank you.